2016, Netflix released a show called Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, a sort of sci-fi mystery show based on the book by Douglas Adams. Immediately, I was super intrigued by this show and really wanted to watch it, and then I didn't watch it until this year, about 8 years later. Having finally watched the show, I really loved it. It was so funny, so heartwarming, so chaotic, and I absolutely loved it. And I wanted to read the book that it was based on, so I went out and got myself a copy of Douglas Adams' book, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, so that I could compare them. I have to say, I have never seen an adaptation that is so accurate and so inaccurate at the same time. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Both the book and the show follow a man by the name of Dirk Gently, who is not a clairvoyant, but simply is able to see the connections between everything in the universe. The idea of a holistic detective means that he doesn't use clues and observations to solve mysteries. He looks at the way that things are connected, the coincidences of the universe, and things that seem like they aren't connected but are. And something to note is that because it is all based on this connection of the universe and everything being so interconnected, both the show and the book are incredibly chaotic, but they are entirely different types of chaos. In the book, the chaos is very structured. Because things are split into different chapters, we have things that are very separated from each other, and you don't really see how some things are connected until you get to the very end. Some of it doesn't even seem like it's related whatsoever. We've got chapters with an electric monk, with the ghost of a murdered man, and with these couple of professors. And for the most part, these characters don't really interact at all outside of their own chapters. And so we don't really see how they could be connected necessarily. But despite that, the book is definitely super chaotic and really funny and has this playful energy to it. I want to just read you the opening line of chapter 29 because I think it is perfectly encapsulating of what Douglas Adams' style is in this novel. Deep in the rainforest, it was doing what it usually does in rainforests, which is raining, hence the name. It's just this super silly, straightforward, over-explaining normal things style of writing, which I love, and it's something that I incorporate in my own writing, but I just find that super funny. And I think that does show how, despite there being some structure in the way that this book is written, it is still chaotic. It is still kind of all over the place and meandering. And I think why it works so well is that balance. In the show, there is also chaos, but instead of being structured, it seems more joyful and playful and unplanned. We follow a lot of different people, all of who interact with each other at some point. Dirk is being chased by a government agency who gave him his universe-connected powers. This agency is also following a group of energy vampires. These energy vampires are also going after Dirk, but are also becoming friends with this girl named Amanda. Amanda's brother Todd is with Dirk, exploring and trying to solve this mystery. Todd is being chased after by the FBI because they suspect him of the murder that they're investigating. And Todd and Dirk are investigating this weird guy with a corgi and this gang of bald men who have kidnapped this woman named Farah, who is trying to find this missing person. It is all just very chaotic. And the thing is that they all sort of interact with each other. They all cross paths. You know that they are connected, but you still aren't able to really figure out why and how. In the book, it's more this, well, are these connected or are they not? Whereas in the show, you know they're connected. It's just a question of why. One of the most chaotic moments in the show, and it's honestly, it's my favorite moment in the entire show. It happens in the second episode when Dirk and Todd go to this hostage exchange. They have this corgi, this guy has this woman, but he thinks that they're friends with the woman. They do not know who this woman is. They don't know why the dog is so important. He thinks that they are the guys who murdered the man in the hotel room. They think he's the one who murdered the man in the hotel room, and absolutely no one knows what is going on. Also, Dirk and Todd threaten to throw the corgi off of a bridge. It's a lot.
How do you know who we are?
We don't. Where's the kitten?
What kitten? Who's that woman?
You don't know her?
Do you?
Why did you burn my house down?
I burnt your house down? Where's Lydia?
She's not here. Bring me the dog.
Why do you want it?
Why did you take it?
We don't know.
Why did you kill Patrick Spring?
We didn't. Did you?
But again, I think that moment perfectly encapsulates the type of chaos that comes with this show. This show is so playful and hilarious and all over the place. And I think that this moment just showcases so well how silly it is, and I love that. Another big change about the show is just the way that Dirk and his ability is portrayed. We as the audience are viewing him through the eyes of his companions. And in the book, that is through a man named Richard Macduff, and in the show, that is through a man named Todd Brotzman. Now, Todd is interesting because he's not a really good person. He's done a lot of bad things, including lying about having a certain disease to try and get money and stealing from his friends. But the thing is that Todd is trying to be a better person. He's trying to be better. He's trying to make money to support his sister who has this serious chronic illness. However, he's got a job that doesn't pay very well and ends up getting fired. He is living in an apartment building where the landlord is harassing him for rent. He's having just a really bad time. But the reason that he works so well with Dirk is because Dirk is able to see goodness in Todd, and because Todd is able to see hope in Dirk. Because Todd is trying to become a better person, I think that's what makes him so open to this hope that Dirk is able to give him. We see Dirk through Todd's eyes as this weird, sometimes potentially insane man, but someone who is genuinely a good person trying to do the right thing, and actually has this weird ability for things to just always work out. Whereas in the book, Richard Macduff knows Dirk from university. Dirk would sometimes be given money to try and divine what questions would be on exams, and one time got in trouble with the law after revealing the entire exam somehow. Richard works a job for a man that he hates. He's in a relationship that is crumbling because of his inability to give it time. And what we end up seeing is that Richard sees Dirk with a lot more skepticism. Because he knows Dirk as a young man from university, because he's seen Dirk use many different names and aliases, we see Dirk through his eyes as a potential con man, potentially an opportunist, someone who's taking advantage of people. And there's a lot more doubt until the very end of the novel. And that is a big part of what changes this. In the novel, Dirk is more of a parody of the sort of grizzled detective story, whereas in the show, it is more of a, not a coming of age story because they're both grown men, but it feels a lot more grounded. The reason that I think that this works, though, is because the show is not an adaptation of this book specifically. It's more of an adaptation of the character and the world that has been created. Dirk in the show is given a lot more of an explanation as to why he has this ability for the universe to just work out for him. It's given the explanation that he's a government experiment, that he's just escaped and he's trying to find his way in the world and wants to become a detective. We focus a lot more on his relationships, the interpersonal relationships between him and Todd, between Todd and his sister Amanda, between these other people named Bart and Ken. Bart is also an interesting character because she, like Dirk, is a government experiment, but instead of being a holistic detective, she's a holistic assassin. And a lot of times her scenes with Ken, her companion, mirror that with Dirk and Todd. The show captures this sci-fi chaos and mystery of the novel, but makes it a lot more grounded and person-based. It makes it more heartfelt and emotional because the book, while good, does not really dive into these characters' emotional connections with each other at all. The book is a lot more interested in the appearance of a mystery novel. What makes a mystery novel a mystery novel? And really kind of focuses on deconstructing that idea. This novel is an absolute master of misdirection. The entire time you begin thinking, oh, well, this man has been murdered, and Dirk goes to Richard because Richard is suspected of this murder. So clearly the novel's about solving this murder. But the murder is actually sort of explained to us as the audience fairly early on in the book. The mystery that Dirk is interested in is not the murder at all. In fact, it's almost completely unrelated. This book just leaves you wondering what's going to happen next because it constantly is pushing you in a direction that you don't expect. And the show is similar to that in the sense that it also sort of leaves you wondering what's going to happen next, but not in the sense of misdirection and hidden connections, but instead because of the pure chaos and overlapping storylines that are happening. Now, that being said, there are a few aspects of the mystery in the novel which do make their way into the show, but I'm not going to tell you what those are because they are massive spoilers for both the show and the book. So as you can tell from everything I just told you, the show is not a super accurate representation of the novel itself or even of the way the character is introduced in the novel. Here's the thing. The vibe is completely different, but I think the show works despite this because it captures not necessarily the personality of Dirk, but it captures what I think is the strongest part of this novel, which is the misdirection, the constant chaos and unsurety of what's going to happen next, and the really interesting sci-fi aspects of this novel. And I think this is a great example of how changing the source material doesn't necessarily mean that an adaptation is going to be bad. I mean, one of the big complaints people had about the Shadow and Bone Season 2 adaptation is how much it diverted from the original storyline, but to be fair, I don't think that's the worst thing about it. The worst thing about it is just the way that the story is told doesn't work. And that's what I think makes this adaptation work so well. Even though it is so different from the book, even though even the characters are different from the way the characters are portrayed in the book, we are being told an entirely new story using only the same character of Dirk Gently. And he is so different from the novel that it feels like it could be its own independent work. But the thing is that they capture the mechanics of the world so well, and that is the core of what keeps it similar, while also telling a really good show and story. TV is a completely different medium to novels, and honestly, the way the novel is laid out, it probably wouldn't necessarily work as a show. So making those changes is definitely a necessity, and this is an example of how to make those changes well. The show takes a character like Dirk, who is not super developed as a person and is not really shown with his emotional connections to other people, and dives more into the mindset of his character and dives into who he is, what his relationships are like, and I think that is a really fantastic way of adapting this. So if you take anything from this video, I hope that you take one, you should definitely watch Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. It is pure chaos and I love it. But I also hope that you take from this that change is not always bad when it comes to adaptation. It's about how you do those changes. And as long as you're telling a compelling story which captures the heart of the original work, then you can have a fantastic adaptation that is pretty much nothing like the original book.